Have you ever wondered what an anime convention looks like in South America? I know you're probably used to huge events like Anime Expo that has more than 300,000 square feet. No, I'm not gonna bore you with images of huge events like this or this. Usually they look like this and this. A lot of anime cons in South America still happen in school settings, and no, I'm not talking about schools having an anime day or anything like that. During weekends, schools are usually empty, and because of that, they usually rent a space for an anime event. And because of the heat, some of them happen in air-conditioned spaces like shopping malls as well, which could be great for attendance, but if you're a seller, that can be pretty bad for sales depending on where you're located. A minority of the events have been able to make good business decisions, expand the business, and grow out of that format, ultimately leading them to convention centers. But even these events still tend to be held in amateur ways and not in any way bound to the industry. The big ones that happen in capitals tend to be the ones that attract people the most. So today I will show you what they look like, focusing on Brazil specifically since it has the biggest anime con in South America, and it's the only country I can say anything about because it's the place where I live. So smaller events tend to be very community driven. They have themed spaces like maid cafes, themed rooms, karaoke, and the older ones even used to have classrooms that would continuously air an anime show or AMV, and people could come in and out at any time they wanted. Nowadays, they're slowly becoming more consumption-driven and not so much community-driven like they used to be, just like the rest of the world, I guess. We cannot mention anime cons in Brazil without mentioning the problem with imported goods in Brazil. Have you ever wondered why websites like eBay usually ship worldwide but not to Brazil? It's because Brazil preserves its economy a lot by avoiding imports. Recently, the government has decided to tax every single type of merchandise that reaches our territory by 20%, even the ones under $50. Without wanting to get too political here, but this measure was supposed to protect the national industry. But honestly, I find it so extreme. I feel like it only benefits merchants that are already rich by selling imports and could not compete otherwise. Brazil has been known to protect its economy for the longest time. And the results of that usually tend to be low quality goods like action figures with melted faces and other things I would personally not buy because I'm super picky. This Spyro action figure caught my eye in one of the events I'm gonna talk about in this video. If you've been following me for a while, you know I'm a big fan of Spyro the Dragon, but this action figure was so expensive I just cannot. We're gonna use an example that was probably the best I could find. The name of the event is Anime Extreme. It happens in the southernmost region of Brazil. It's pretty well organized. It has 14,000 square meters. It has an attendance of approximately 30,000 people over the weekend, and it's pretty safe. I cannot believe how safe it is. The staff is very kind, even though they're not very prepared for such a big event, and the bathrooms are constantly being cleaned up as well. The exhibit hall is a land without law. No one knows about the copyright law in the exhibit hall. Or even if they do, they don't seem to care. There's a big problem with the exhibit hall is that merch is never up to date with what people want to get. People who sell there just seem to be there for the money. They aren't like consumers of the culture themselves. And now with AI art, you will often find someone selling AI art there as well. The problem is the average public cannot tell the difference. It's curious that even with XP Pen being there every year, people still drop by my table and have no idea how my digital art is done. There was a year I actually went there to work with XP Pen, and people saw me use one hand to draw on the screen and my other hand on the keyboard to give comments. I lost count of how many times I had to explain I wasn't drawing with both hands and I was just using one of them to give commands. This guy is the sole sales representative for XP Pen in the whole country. They have released new models. I've been wanting to get my hands on the Magic Drawing Pad, and just recently they released a new version of their 22-inch screen tablet I've been absolutely drooling over, so make sure to check out my affiliate links in the description. So as far as celebrity goes, as everyone knows, celebrities bring a lot of people to these events. There's an effort from organizers to always have panels with them because they usually drive society and dictate consumer behaviors. Except for these events, most of the celebrities have absolutely nothing relevant to the theme in question, and they seem to be a placeholder for something we don't know yet. A lot of the times, they also happen to call the same old voice actors that have been roaming all anime cons in the country for more than 15 years. And since it has been working out, I mean, people are still buying tickets and crowding the convention hall, so there doesn't seem to be any incentive to change this. Should you do these conventions as an artist? I mean, in these events, artists tend to be crushed and eaten with cereal most of the time. I mean, smaller events tend to have better intentions over artists. Like this picture, it makes me a little bit confused. You see that there are some drawings on her table, but is she there to sell? Is she there to make friends? There are some things in these events that make me wonder, what's the point? And you would say, that looks so nice. She's there to make friends, right? And for people to follow her. Well, I've been in events like this, and let me tell you, people don't approach. People usually don't approach when they don't know what's the point of you there. I bet this YouTube video can give this artist more exposure than this event ever did. You know, Brazil is the type of country you're told to become a doctor instead, even though by being a successful artist you can earn more by doing less than a doctor. Less than 25% of our population has access to higher education, and only 5% of the population speaks English, with only 1% being fluent. In my experience in Artist Alley, people expect you to have variety in order to make sales, but variety also means a lot of risk of keeping your stock still for a long time. Like in any convention, it's extremely gratifying to see people's smiles when they see my stuff, and that's probably one of the few reasons why I still do them. Last year, I was tabling in the Artist Alley, and since they couldn't see me draw, they'd ask me if I draw in the computer, if I use the mouse, if the computer does the work itself, and they would get extremely confused. But Sayuui, you just mentioned that XP Pen was in the hall and they had drawing tablets for people to use. Why were they so confused? The general public doesn't care. They have existential problems to deal with every day. Bringing food to the table is really an issue, and this is the only contact they usually have with art as a job, which makes this whole situation terrifying. On these events, tables aren't really that competitive to get. If you pay, you're basically in. So, do you realize someone could just pay for an Artist Alley table and start selling AI art? Of course, the other artists would identify it and it would become an absolute chaos of a chase, but it could happen. I think the only advantage of tabling as an artist in these events is that the exhibit hall doesn't care about making products that are up to date and related to what people have been consuming, but the issues I've had with national manufacturers, table high restrictions and table expenses make me feel like not wanting to keep doing them. Like I mentioned before in this video, it's impossible to import anything from any country, and the best keychain manufacturers tend to be in China. Usually, people say that conventions are the best ways to make money as an artist, but not here. Don't get me wrong, I've met people who are successful in this medium, but I'd say if you're already doing well with commissions, you have no reason to table at these events, because a single commission could pay your bills for the whole month, depending on your living standards. You have no idea how hard it was for me to find a good national manufacturer for my keychains, and they still don't look exactly how I wanted them to look. And these events don't really happen that often, so I have to deal with idle stock a lot of the time. So this was my table in the last Anime Extreme. Usually my table looks like this. Why was it so small then? High restrictions tend to be a huge issue for artists because our most profitable product tends to be prints, and people tend to buy them more if they see them in an eye level. Not only high restrictions are an issue, but we're usually the first ones to be affected by copyright as well. Let me explain. In order for a person selling at these events to have a real issue with copyright, the copyright holder has to be in the event being represented by someone. So let's say Crunchyroll is copyright striking one of these events, which never happened, by the way. The organizers would get so scared that any side of copyright issue goes directly to the Artist Alley, and the exhibitors who pay more expensive tables tend to stay intact. So basically, there are two types of copyright: the character copyright and the picture copyright. Artists usually, when making fan art, they don't have the character copyright, but they do have the picture copyright. But the exhibitors have none. So why would we get in trouble in the first place? Artists tend to be treated poorly by the organizers because our tables are significantly cheaper than the exhibitor tables. And with that, they usually don't listen to artist complaints. To make it worse, all the big anime events are getting bought by the huge ones and ultimately being turned into a big mesh of events ruled by only one organizer. Recently, the Omelete company, which is responsible for the Brazilian Comic Con, bought the Anime Friends event, which is the biggest anime convention in South America, probably in the entire Latin America. Does that mean Anime Friends is finally becoming an industry event? We'll never know. Well, I don't want to end this video on a negative note, so this shows me that these events are very resilient. These events are extremely safe. No one goes there to steal from people. Like, I was a victim of theft in Anime Expo when I went there the first time. If you live in Brazil, if you're not selling commissions very well, and you're very patient with table restrictions, there's a lot of potential money to be made at these events. It's just starting out for artists. Another thing I really like about these events is that the artists in the alley are very united. I didn't even have to ask for them to start helping me with Like for example, when the sun started invading the alley, and a lot of them put blankets on the top so it could cover everyone there. The community is amazing, and that's probably a very worthwhile reason to keep doing them. If you'd like to make more money with commissions no matter what country you're from, you should watch this video next, and I hope to see you there.